Picture this. The journey ahead starts here together, and together we can build a brighter future. You are listening to Illuminating Hope, a podcast of Hope House. Michael Mackie, a proud Midwesterner, growing up, he always knew he wanted to be in TV or on TV or watching TV. He's not picky. I even got my degree in broadcasting from the University of Iowa to prove to the world that I was not only educated, but well-versed in sitcoms, game shows, and Oprah, he says. Also, I got minors in French and acting as well. Someday, that will enable me to write, produce, direct, and star in a straight-to-video production in Quebec. Not only is Mackie an Aries with a Pisces rising, he's an 8-time Emmy Award winner. He's worked and freelanced for a variety of local television affiliates in Des Moines, Orlando, and Kansas City, and was the co-host of a local daily entertainment show, KC Live. A prolific writer by trade, Mackie recently became a member of the prestigious Society of American Travel Writers. In March, Mackie became the co-host to KCPBS's new travel show, Get Lost, where he and co-host Lonita Cook throw a dart at a map and caution to the wind as they travel down the road really less traveled. My parents could never comprehend how I earned my keep, stringing words together for the universe to appreciate, he says. Frankly, that makes 3 of us. But I feel like it's what I was put on this earth to do. I was born to tell people stories. Whether you read it, well, that's up to you. MichaelMackie.com. Welcome to the Illuminating Hope podcast. We're glad you're here.
Oh, you're so sweet. I appreciate it. And just so we're clear, it's MichaelMackie.com. We're going to do the branding. We have to throw that part
We have to throw it in, of course. I'll do better next time. Okay. So May is Stroke Awareness Month. And yes, a lot of our domestic violence survivors, a lot of victim survivors that are still in the community are often isolated from the facts of stroke, from the important...
the telltale signs.
Absolutely. The telltale signs of having a stroke. So if they ever come across this podcast, which we are hoping they do now that we're global, can you share a piece of your story and just give a lot of emphasis on signs and symptoms?
Well, mercifully, I had a lot of symptoms that I paid attention to. My story is kind of odd in that I was on vacation. I was actually at a hotel and I went to bed the night before and got up the next morning and I just felt like garbage. I really thought I had the flu, and so I was debating about whether or not to go back to bed. And I thought, no, I have a whole full day planned, so I'm going to try and get up and start my day. And every single thing I did got increasingly more difficult to do. Making coffee was a challenge. Taking a shower took a village. I mean, it was just everything was getting progressively more difficult to do. And I just was like, oh, I'm going to lay back in my bed and work on my computer for a while until this wave of nausea and feeling crappy sort of dissipates. And I remember that I'm working on my computer and you guys, my computer wasn't working. And I was like, well, that's frustrating. This was just working when I went to bed last night. Well, it wasn't that my computer wasn't working. It's that I wasn't working. Specifically, I'm typing away, but my hand was not typing. Like in my head, I was typing, but my hand wasn't moving. And I thought, well, that's, weird. My arm's asleep. And it was a very odd sensation because I was starting to have the very first effects of the stroke. I remember getting up and taking a step, and of course my left leg went out, and so I ate the floor. I need you to make this visual. I hopped on my good leg up to the mirror, and to this day, I do not know why I did this, but thank God I did, because I looked directly into the mirror, and I tried to say my ABCs. And in my head, I was saying A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I was saying my ABCs as fast as I could, but out of my mouth, all I heard was like that, and I thought, holy crap, I'm having a stroke. So I called 911. Well, here's the deal. When you call 911 from a hotel room, the operator knew that I was having a medical episode. She was like, sir, I know that you are in distress and the ambulance is on the way, but we don't know what room you're in and you need to get to the lobby. And by this point, the stroke was starting to kick in. Like I was starting to sort of fade in and out of lucidity. I was starting to not be present. And I thought, you know what, I am not going to die in this hotel room. So then it became my life life's mission to get to the lobby as I'm like coming to and going out of consciousness. Well, not consciousness, but lucidity, like I wasn't really all there. So I hopped on my good leg down to the lobby where I could hear the ambulance off in the distance, and I made it to the lobby, and the minute I got a visual on the ambulance, I don't remember anything after that. They just said I just collapsed in the lobby. And on the way to the hospital, which was around the corner, and a bit of serendipity because life works in mysterious ways. The hospital, this was in St. Louis, was an old folks hospital. Talk about, serendipity, because what do they deal with 90% of the time is strokes and heart attacks and strokes. So I remember sort of coming to in the ambulance, and the paramedics were like, well, he's clearly on drugs, because I wasn't making any sense and I'm flailing and I'm not, I can't use my voice. And I'm trying to convey to them that no, I am not on drugs, that I am having a stroke, but you can't do it. And then I remember just blacking out again. And mercifully, the emergency room nurse practitioner or surgeon, I don't remember who was there, was like, he's having a stroke. And this was 2010. So they had this brand new, at the time, it was called a clot busting drug. Now they give it all the time. But at the time, it was a relatively new shot. And I distinctly remember it. She grabbed it. I saw her coming at me. She didn't even wait. She just plunged that sucker right into my stomach. And within 0.02 seconds, like no sooner than had she gotten it into my stomach than the clot broke up, and I snap came to, so to speak. And I still couldn't speak, but at least I was more with it. I was back to being aware of my surroundings and what was going on. And I remember not being able to use one side of my body and thinking to myself, okay, all right, do I really need, I only need like one side of my body, the other one's fine. But if I can never speak again, if I'm not able to communicate, that's going to be a problem, because that's what I do for a living. Little by little, over the course of 3 days, this clot busting drug, which, miracle of miracles, if you get this particular drug within 30 to 45 minutes of having a stroke, it often turns back all of the effects of your stroke. But anything over an hour and it's not as effective. So I got it pretty much at the, 30-minute mark. And so sure enough, little by little, every symptom that I was experiencing, the side of my body started to come back. It was weak, but it was there. My speech came back. My thought process and patterns came back. So after the third day, I got bounced out of the hospital with basically a clean bill of health. And the weird thing is that when the neurosurgeon said, okay, you can't drive for a month. I'm not sure how you're going to get home back to Kansas City, but as far as I'm concerned, you're good to go. And that day that I left the hospital, I knew I had dodged a bullet, figuratively and literally, that I had cheated death. And I vowed right then and there that no matter what anybody asked of me, I knew that for the next year, no matter what anybody asked of me, I was going to say yes. Because up until that point, I'd gotten into a groove of just saying no to things just because I couldn't be bothered or whatever. And I realized I was just phoning in life. I wasn't showing my best. I wasn't living life. I was just sort of like going through the motions. And so right then and there, I decided that next year, for the whole 365 days from that day, was going to be my year of yes. And it really revolutionized how I lived my life, because I didn't realize how many times I just instinctively and without any thought would say no to things just because I couldn't be bothered or whatever. And once my friends found out that I wasn't saying no to things, they of course asked me to do the most stupid, idiotic things ever. They'd be like, Mackie, do you want to go? Hey, we're going skydiving this weekend. Do you want to go? And I'd be like, no. I'll go. Yes. And it was that sort of thing. So I really learned how to live life to the fullest all over again. Because when you cheat death, it really makes an impact on you can either keep phoning life in, or you can step up your game. And that's obviously what I did.
I think your story is amazing. One, that you had all of those things in place that helped you get what you needed at the time that you needed it. The hospital was very close to the hotel, and the person knew that it was an old person hospital, one I would be going to. I think that, but I also, when I'm hearing your story, I'm thinking about the number of people who don't see things that are happening, or put things to the side, or say, I'll deal with that later, That is not something that you could deal with later. You have to deal with that right now. Your health, your life was dependent on that. And I think one of the things that we experience when we're working with people who have been victims of domestic violence is they put themselves last. honest. This is so important. That's why I really wanted to have this conversation, because whether it's a stroke or a heart attack or other incident that happens to someone, it's really important that we value who we are and to say, I deserve to pay attention to these signs. And I think there's a lot of people who don't do that. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, but just to be able to bring awareness that it's important to put yourself first. And I want to go to the yes and the no. So talk about, do you have a reason or a thought as to why no was so popular in your world prior to that? And then what shifted? I mean, you just knew at leaving the hospital that's just what you were going to do. How did you come to that decision?
I think I really realized when the neurologist said, because I was so close to just going back to bed because I felt so craptastic in the hotel room. And if I would have just laid my head down and went back to sleep, I guarantee you I would have been either dead or incredibly debilitated. The stroke would have seized the opportunity and taken over. So when he told me that, he goes, wow, you really came out of this unscathed, so good on you. That was an eye-opener that I legit cheated death and didn't even know how close I was to seeing the light. Go into the light, Carol Ann. You know, when you just sort of hit this midlife, I don't want to say midlife crisis, but it was just sort of like everything was happening around me. I wasn't making things happen. I was just being a participant and letting everything just sort of waft over me. Well, then I decided to completely record scratch and go in the complete opposite direction and start making things happen and start living my life to the absolute fullest because I had just cheated death. Every day I thought, you know what, I might not even be here today if it weren't for the fact. So, and then once people started finding out that I was not saying no to things, I mean, the ridiculousness of the scenarios just sort of took over, and people would ask me to go whitewater rafting, and just the insane things that I did of that year really reminded me that you get one life and you need to capitalize on that and make the absolute most of every day, because you don't know when your number's up, your number's up.
And so hopefully we can reach people and they can come to that without having to have a life-altering episode in their life, that they could come to that, hear your words and not have to have a stroke and almost die to be able to come to that decision. I got to participate in my life.
So yes being a complete sentence, that's pretty bold. I love it, actually.
For me, back then it was bold. Now I realize that saying no gets you nowhere. No stops the conversation. It just does. It shoots people down. It doesn't open up any doors. So I've learned, like when you said, hey, would you like to do this podcast? Yes. Like I just say yes to things without hesitation now. In fact, I joke, I would go to the opening of an envelope, but you just need to invite me, because if you invite me, I'll say yes. I'll be there with bells on.
So you're still saying yes?
Still.
So
Has no come back in yet?
No hasn't crept back into my vocabulary. So it's been, we're going on 14 years since I nearly died. And talk about a life-changing, life-altering medical emergency. But I came out on the other side, and I'm lucky I did.
What are some of the changes you've made in your own health, if you don't mind talking about that, to help prevent another stroke? I know there's action steps you can take.
There are. Here's the weird thing. Other than just my daily this is weird, my daily dose of fish oil and baby aspirin, I'm not really on any meds or anything for my stroke. I had what was called a right cerebral infarction, which is a pretty decent medium-sized stroke.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I had no medical history, no family history, no history of drug use. I was an anomaly. And 90% of people who have strokes and recover from them, there's absolutely no medical reason why they had said stroke. And they go on to recover from it. I mean, yes, there are a litany of other factors too that are medically caused medically, but for me, it was just one of those completely out of the blue things where, thank God, I had the wherewithal to call 911 when I did. That in and of itself saved my life.
Well, not only that, you got yourself down to the lobby.
That's crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You got yourself down to the lobby. Because you couldn't speak what room number you were in.
No, and she just flat out said, hey, I know you're calling from the Marriott, but we don't know what room you're in, so you have to get to the lobby. And keep in mind that at this point, the stroke is starting to rage. I wouldn't say it hit, quote unquote hit, but I was starting to go fade in and out. So And I was just determined. I was like, I am not going to die in this hotel room.
To be able to stay together to get yourself down there.
And
There's no one helped you? You didn't run across anyone in the hallway?
No.
Or they didn't run away from you when they saw you walking down the hall?
I don't know, like 9:45 on like a Thursday morning. It was some random time. Like there was nobody in the lobby. I don't remember anything about that. Other than, this is a funny story, and this is a true story too. When I got to the hospital, I woke up and the neurologist or the emergency room nurse, she was like, do you want to tell me about the banana? And I go, I'm sorry, the what? When you came in, you had a banana in your hand. And I was like, I don't remember that. Well, clearly at the front desk, they had fruit at the front desk. And so on my way out, I'm close to death, I was like, oh, you know what? That's pretty good. I think I'm going to
have a banana.
Maybe I need some potassium while I'm stroking out. And so she was like, yeah, you had a banana. And I was in my good hand because, obviously my...
Right. Exactly.
So I was like, ma'am, I don't... Thank you for saving my life. I don't know the significance of the banana. I'm guessing that I must have grabbed it from the lobby. That's a true story.
Michael Mackie, Get Lost. Let's talk about it.
Let's get lost, people. I have a brand new show on Kansas City PBS, and it all sort of came to fruition a couple of years ago. I had heard through the grapevine that our local PBS affiliate was looking for some new programming. And ladies, I don't know if you know this, but you could walk into any PBS affiliate, pretty much any PBS affiliate in the country, and pitch a show because it's called public television for a reason. But then once you pitch the show, then it has to go before a green light board. It's a whole thing. It's a whole process, which I didn't know about. But I heard they were looking for programming, and I kind of had this inkling that I wanted to do a travel show because at the time I was heavy duty into travel. I was a travel writer, and I was like, oh, this sounds good. Let's, What I didn't realize is that the process to go from pitching a show to getting it greenlit to getting it produced it was a full-blown, full-tilt, 2-year project, a 2-year labor of love. 2 years. March of 2022 to it debuted at the end of February of this year of 2024. And the premise is, there's this big giant map of Kansas and Missouri, and I close my eyes and hurl a dart. And wherever that dart hits, that is the destination. But the show, Get Lost, has absolutely nothing to do with the destination. In this case, the dart hit the fair city of Buckland, Missouri. And apologies, Buckland, Missouri, if I were Buckland, I'd be ticked off because the show had absolutely nothing to do with them whatsoever. It was me and my co-host Lonita Cook getting in our car, throwing our maps out the window, throwing our phones out the window, and literally getting lost on the way to Buckland, Missouri, which is extreme northeast Missouri. It's about 2.5 hours away. We got in the car and we went north and we went east, and
so you just try to figure it out.
Yep, and we stop in every tiny town and see what they have, and we'd pull in, we'd be like, what's your town known for? And they'd be like, we have an 800-pound metal armadillo out front. And I'd be like, why? How? And that was the gist of the story. So our second episode, which we have not shot yet, but our second episode, the dart hit just past the Flint Hills. Ooh. So we will be going way western Kansas. So the first one was Missouri, and then after that, I'm not going to tell you where the dart hit because it's a surprise. But we're gearing up for round twos, threes, fours, and fives.
I watched your first episode, and I thought it was fantastic.
You are sweet. I appreciate that.
Well, I love the idea, and I'm not something I've ever done, so I'm not one that says yes all the time. So I really have been thinking about that. But how fun to do that. How long did it take you? I mean, because you edit it down. How long did you guys spend getting
lost?
Getting lost. How long did you spend getting lost?
We took a good 3 days. Like, it was a 3-day sojourn to get there. I mean, it was 2.5 hours away, but we stopped at a lot of different places along the way. We just realized sort of, well, I mean, we could stop at Excelsior Springs. Let's check it out. Let's, meander our way up. Oh, look, there's the world's largest spool of thread in Hamilton. It was just this weird, and every time we would stop, this was not planned, but every time that we would stop, it would have this odd Walt Disney connection, which is just crazy So on our way to Excelsior Springs, we swung by the West Bottoms, which the West Bottoms Electric Park is the old-timey version of Electric Park, is what Walt Disney sort of based part of Disneyland on. And then we just kept maneuvering up. And right before you get to Buckland is Marceline, which is Walt Disney's hometown. And Marceline's Main Street inspiration, or the model for Disneyland's original Main Street USA. And so there are a lot of really weird elements. You like walking, you're like, wow, this looks a lot like Main Street USA. And that's because that's the hometown of one Mr. Walt Disney.
So how were people, I mean, you are one of those people that you don't know a stranger.
I don't.
You will talk to anyone.
I will.
About anything.
It's true.
How did people receive you?
Well, they were a little like, I will say this much. The only sort of forethought that we did is we would sort of give the mayors of these towns a mini heads up that a television crew may or may not be rolling into their town. We just didn't want them to be like completely blindsided. And plus, it was a lot of right place at the right time. Like Hamilton was having a quilt festival. Everything was meant to be. But I will say, we shot on the 3 hottest days of the year in August. I will never do that again. It was well over 100 degrees all 3 days. In fact, the last day, I don't remember what town we were shooting in, but it was 122 degrees in the shade. And we were and I was melting. And if I was melting, my poor co-host Lonita, it was like shooting on the surface of the sun, ladies, for 3 days. So
when does it air on PBS? I know the first one's already dropped, but when are they?
Yeah, the first one's out, and it is streaming, so you can find it on YouTube. And then the second one, hopefully, will get shot here in the next couple months. And like I said, that's we're going west. We're going way past the Flint Hills. So we're going to, again, chuck our phones out the window and our maps out the window, and we're going to get lost.
Well, do a little shout out to your co-host and how the two of you came together.
I love Lonita. Lonita has been one of my gal pals for 100 years. She co-hosts a show called Kansas City Live back in the early 2010s. And she was the movie critic on our show. And so when I was putting this sort of the genesis of this show together, I knew I needed a co-host. And she was I literally wrote the first episode with her in mind. Because I knew it would make for good TV. One, because Lonita and I are just buddy-buddy to begin with. We're chummy-chummy. But Lonita and I have basically, we have nothing in common. Nothing. So Lonita, she doesn't travel very much. She a grandma. She a Christian. She a vegan. And here's me who eats my weight in bacon every day. And so I knew that, and I love Lonita, and I love her personality and her joie de vivre. So I knew it would make for really good, just off-the-cuff banter, which we didn't script a lot. We just sort of winged it, And so getting lost with somebody, and you never really know somebody until you travel with them. And so that truly, truly, truly came out during those 3 days. Also, PS hashtag, I've never eaten more vegan food in my entire life.
And it's delicious.
Is it?
How easy is it to find on the road?
It was not. She brought
a cooler.
She brought a cooler because I said, Lonita, we're going into God's country and you're going to starve to death.
Right.
So
That's what I would think.
I think was it Hamilton? I think it was Hamilton. We went to the only restaurant in town and we told the chef that Lonita was a vegan, and he just looked blankly and he was like, "Pasta Primavera it is." But you know what? He made her a dish and it was great. So yeah, she would have liked to have starved. I didn't really realize there were so many vegan snacks available. But there are. And I ate all of them for 72 hours.
Are you vegan now?
No, God, no. No. No, when I
not even a quarter?
No, I could not. I ordered bacon and eggs, heavy on the bacon.
I was going to say, you're in B&G country for sure. Biscuits and gravy. Oh, my goodness.
I do love cow.
So let's talk about your work experience, because you have had a variety of things, but you have made talking your living.
Kind of, yeah.
But I grew up in Iowa. You spent a lot of time in Iowa.
I did. I was born and raised in Des Moines, and I got my start at a television station there, and then went to a television station in Orlando for a hot minute. And then I got promoted up here to Kansas City, and in the last 25 years, I've worked at 4 different TV stations here in the market. Talking has become kind of a cottage industry for me, and I you guys know I fill in from time to time on Dana and Parks, which has been spectacular because I never know what we're going to talk about until maybe 15 seconds before we go on the air. That's the beauty of keeping me on my toes.
That's right.
So I have to suddenly become an expert on any number of things. The only thing I won't talk about are sports and politics because I know nothing about either, nor does that ever make for good radio.
No, that doesn't. That just causes problems.
Yeah, no. And then somewhere along the way, I was always an entertainment reporter, and I'm still an entertainment reporter to this day. So I jokingly say, if you name the celebrity, I have probably interviewed them twice. It's funny because now I have just enough gravitas in the entertainment industry to be dangerous. So when big stars come to town, it usually comes down to either me getting the interview or the star. And, 8 out of 10 times the star gets it. But every once in a while, I'll steal their thunder, and it's a really good feeling.
How did you become an entertainment reporter?
Completely by accident. When I was at my TV station in Des Moines, it was all the reporters were, if it bleeds, it leads. They were hard news. They didn't want to do any sort of features or anything that was even slightly remotely entertainment based. It was all hard news all the time. And one day, the assignment editor was all flustered because he had forgotten that a celebrity was coming in for an interview because she had a new show or something. I don't even remember. And he said, "Hey, who wants this interview?" And it was like cockroaches when you turn the lights on. Like the entire newsroom just cleared out. And I was the only one left, and I was like, I was a newbie. Like I hadn't even been there maybe a month. And
I would think everyone would jump on that.
Nope, not a single one.
My
Like
goodness.
And I was like, well, I'll do it. Who's the celebrity? And before I even said, who's the celebrity, in walks Joanne Worley. Because he had forgotten about it, and she was right on time, and she was like, I'm here!
Oh my gosh.
And there was a collective eye roll from the assignment editor, and he was like, gave the photographer who didn't want to do it, and literally set up the worst setup I've ever seen. It was truly between two ferns. It was me and Joanne Worley and some harsh fluorescent lighting. I will never forget it. And keep in mind, she's ready to do the interview. I didn't know anything about her other than she was on Laughing, which is, I'm showing my age. But I just winged it. I just acted like I knew what I was doing. Next week, the week after that, was Sherman Hemsley from the Jeffersons. And again, no one wanted to do it, so by default, I got it. And then I became the ipso facto accidental entertainment reporter.
Classic fake it till you make it.
I truly faked it until I made it.
I love it. I fake it every day. So fake it till I make
whatever
it.
You do. You just have very interesting things to talk about, and you just pulled it out. I would have been like, not had a clue what to say.
Was Joanne Worley my best interview? No, but I often go back to that with fond memories because she sort of was my launching pad.
That's right.
And then after that, it was just the most random smattering, like Dennis Weaver and the Fonz, and it was crazy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, a lot of people coming in out of Des Moines
for whatever
reason.
And then, once I got to Kansas City, obviously the stars got bigger. So, and to date, I have interviewed 10 Academy Award winners. What?
That's amazing.
I know.
Do you want to name them?
He'll forget one, right?
Okay. But my last one was Jamie Lee Curtis. So.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she said to say hi.
Oh, of course she did.
She said.
And you see Tina Johnson.
So, yes. Funny because every time people joke, they're like, "Oh, there's so-and-so," and I jokingly think in my head, I've talked to them. It's gotten to that point. So up next, keep your fingers crossed because I'm on the short list. Fingers crossed. I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm on the short list to interview Anne and/or Nancy Wilson from Heart because they're coming here in October.
Oh, really?
Oh, they're going to be a
I'm
good
obsessed with
show.
them, so.
Yes.
So fingers crossed. No promises.
Let me hear a couple bars real quick.
How was that?
That was it. I like it.
And I have an interview coming out. Well, by the time this comes out, it'll already be out. But Margaret Cho, so well-known comedian.
Wow.
So yeah, so you can check
So
it out.
have you thought about doing stand-up or doing comedy at all?
I don't think that would be my forte.
No?
I'm quick-witted, but I don't know if I'm stand-up material. I do truly enjoy going to see a good comedian. I'm a big proponent of the Comedy Club of Kansas City.
I don't imagine it's probably easy to do that, but man, you certainly make people laugh.
Oh,
But you don't You're not really trying to do that, I guess.
Well, I have a lot of shtick and a lot of stories, but I don't think I could weave an actual set.
Set up out of that.
So,
Yeah.
but it sounds good in theory. I'm not saying no because I don't say no to things, but.
So do you just wait till somebody's going to listen to this and then say, come do stand-up for us?
Hey, Michael, do you want to come to our open mic night? And I'll be like, no. Yes.
Yeah, Marianne, why did she have to open her mouth? Oh my God.
Kids today.
So you also do things around branding, personal branding.
Yeah, that's kind of become my forte lately.
Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's really interesting.
I love that.
Well, a couple of years ago, I started working for a boutique marketing agency here in town who specialized in personal branding. Now, if you would have asked me 2 years ago if I would have become a personal branding expert, I would have been like, you're crazy. But it's been an odd dynamic, and it's been something that I quickly found out that personal branding is a lot like that old philosophical adage where if a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, does it make a sound? Did it actually fall? Well, personal branding is a lot like that. If you do a bunch of amazing, phenomenal things and no one knows about them, did you actually do them? Does anyone care? So what I do is find ways to shamelessly, blatantly promote people without anyone knowing they're being shamelessly, blatantly promoted. It's kind of it's a novel approach, and my boss has gotten to be really good at it, and she has passed down her wisdom through the years, and now I in turn have gotten to be really good at it. So a lot of times it's a real mixed bag of clients that I work with. Like today, here's a perfect example. Today, very schizophrenic, but today I worked with a motivational speaker, or I worked on a motivational speaker, I worked on a chef, and I worked on a cybersecurity expert. So no 2 days are the same, but everybody has a different skill set and ability to get marketed and promoted and figure out ways to enhance their personal brand. And I always say, and this is an important thing to remember, I always say, if you do not control your online persona, if you don't control your own narrative, somebody else will.
Absolutely.
And so you kind of have to take the reins and put your best face forward, both figuratively and literally, whether that's online or however you want to do it. So we have a lot of people who come to us when they want to change career fields. Or switch gears completely. We have a lot of C-suite executives who kind of want to stand out in the crowd. Yeah, we're one of the only agencies in town. The agency I work for is called Lily and James Creative. Lily and James Creative is one of the only if not the only agency in town that really specializes in the personal branding milieu.
So I'm curious if people just don't know how to put themselves out there, or are they doing it and you're helping them to craft it differently because they're not doing it correctly? Or are these people just tend to be shy and need help? Or
it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It's always people are doing it incorrectly, or they're gloating and bragging, which is a complete turnoff.
Right.
They're doing it all wrong. And so we are very strategic about what we put out. There's a lot of behind the scenes finessing to where we get to the point where we are literally honing and curating all the things that they put out into the universe so that it is finessed within an inch of its life. So they are truly putting their best face forward. So it's always fun to see people shine and excel in areas that they have always been an expert in, but they never took the bull by the horns. They never capitalized on the fact that they are really, really good at what they do, or knowledgeable, or whatever the case is. So.
What would you say to an organization or a company who is just starting out? Like, type of questions or line of questions would you use when you first start talking to somebody?
Well, break it down, everybody has a story. You just have to sort of get it out of them and figure out what that is, and then make it palatable for the masses and try to figure out what makes them tick, what's going to help them stand out, and more importantly, just be their best, authentic, genuine self online, because everyone can see if you're being disingenuous. If you are just sort of phoning it in or just sort of making things up as you go along, people can see right through that. So we want to just let that person shine, and a lot of times it's companies, we get this a lot a lot of times companies hire us to promote their people. So their businesses, yeah, we promote their businesses or their companies or organizations, but they really realize that it's their people that make the difference. Here's just an example. Like, let's say, and this is just a case scenario, let's say a law firm has 2 or 3 or 4 junior partners who they know are going to hit the corner office in about 3 or 4 years. Well, that's great, but currently those junior partners, they have no gravitas, they have no online presence whatsoever. So we will take them and we will work with them for those 2 or 3 years to build their online brand so that when they do hit the corner office as a, senior partner or a whatever, that they're ready to go, that they have a name, they have a persona, and they can run with it and help the firm that they work for. Same for like real estate agencies, and every company is different.
I was going to say, there's probably not anyone that wouldn't benefit from those services.
No, we have motivational speakers to medical professionals. It's just, there's no rhyme or reason, but a lot of people use our services because they have something to say and they want to stand out, and we help them do that.
Well, it's hard to stand out in social media environment, whether you're an individual or a nonprofit. I mean, we're doing that all the time too, trying to make sure that people know about us and know what we're doing. The whole world just kind of is a thing out there that I don't navigate it very well. So I find it fascinating for people who can navigate it and navigate it well. So I probably need to come see you for some assistance.
Anytime, sister, anytime.
Yes.
I have to give you guys props and kudos, because when I heard that you were launching this podcast, I thought to myself, that is brilliant. That is putting yourself out there. You get a wide range of topics. You get a wide range of guests. It was a smart move. So props, Mama, for doing that.
I have a great co-host here who helps with that. But I think it's important, if we don't put ourselves out there, then people don't know that we're here. And people need our services. They need to know that we're here. But even for those people who aren't necessarily directly impacted, every single one of us knows someone who's been a victim of domestic violence at some point in their lives. And so if we can all know what the signs are, what to look for, what we can do to help, understanding the dynamics, I think that's one of the things that we spend so much time on, is trying to educate people about domestic violence, because it's complicated, it's ugly. Nobody wants to talk about how someone can be so horrible to the person they're in a relationship with. But we all really, to me, that's been my life's work, to make sure people understand and know that it's happening, because we're all going to encounter people at some point, and whether it's ourselves, our friends, our coworkers, our family members, we need to be able to offer our assistance to that person. And it can be, here, call this number, this hotline, they're there to help you. So being able to get ourselves out there is really, really important. And having a guest like you on our show is
really, really, really important.
Cool. pretty cool.
And you don't know, none of us know the ripple effect that this podcast might have. Like, just one person might hear this podcast and life-affirming, life-changing effect on them. So
right.
I'm always a big proponent of just putting it out there and seeing what's next. So, and like I said, this podcast will live on in infamy, and if it helps one person, then goal achieved.
Right. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about domestic violence today, but I think that's okay. I think it's important that, because domestic violence doesn't happen in a vacuum. People have lives, they go about their lives all of the time, and domestic violence is a part of what their life is. And I think it's really important to address some of these other pieces too. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing about your story and the impact that you've had.
And I appreciate you guys having me, because you hit the nail on the head. You never really know what goes on behind closed doors. And so I just want to reinforce the fact that you guys are here to help, and you are here for a reason, and you are truly doing the Lord's work. So props to both of you.
You called 911 in your time of emergency. I do want our listeners to know now there's a feature where some of our victim survivors can text 911 and get the same service. So maybe they're with an abuser still and they are having stroke symptoms. That is one of the safety planning options now for 911. So we're definitely evolving in a lot of different ways as far as stroke awareness is. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. MichaelMackie.com. It's hard to do with cold. Thank you.